My name is Desiree Wood. I'm a truck driver, and I'm the president and founder of Real Women in Trucking. Work this a little bit from the front and the back because the clicker's not really working, so we're going to try to do the best that we can do here. So today we're bringing you this hot legal topics for truck drivers with some of the top lawyers who are fighting for truck drivers on many different issues. Misclassification, sexual harassment, Surface Transportation Assistance Act. I know a lot of you don't know what that is, but it's truck driver whistleblower protections, refusals to drive. We're going to get more in that. So we have up here Paul Taylor from the Trucker Justice Center, Craig Ackerman and Tilla-Jeff, and his colleague Ashish, and Josh Friedman. Okay, so we're going to go through this, and he's got my notes on my PowerPoint, so I can't really see them there. Next slide. Okay, so why another organization? Well, when I entered trucking in 2007, I had a lot of problems in my training, like a lot of other drivers had. A lot of unsafe practices in the training carriers, putting me in unsafe situations in team driving fleets. I tried to reach out to another organization and I was silenced. In the last 10 years, I've found that many women have been blocked, silenced, told to not talk about what's happening to them when they were going through team driving in mixed gender teams to pull team freight. They were told the only women that get recognized are the ones that serve in silence, and my membership was revoked. I started writing my story on Mr. Alan Smith's blog, and he's right there. If it wasn't for him answering my email, none of us would be here. So thank you, Alan Smith. That led to the formation of our own organization called Real Women in Trucking. We're a driver organization. We started out just as a protest group, but we got our 501c6 status in 2013 and turned it into a membership organization. There was bullying, there was intimidation, retaliation, and it was just like, this is wrong, this can't be right. So that's kind of how we started. In the last 10 years, more and more groups have started springing up. My passion was more advocacy, to get up and stand up for yourself, you know. If you need to find a lawyer and get justice, you should do it. You shouldn't be silenced, and you shouldn't be told that you're not allowed to talk about what's happening to you like you're the only one that it's happening to make you feel like you're crazy, like there's something wrong with you because this happened to you. That was sort of my biggest driver for this whole thing. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to hear this ugly truth, so they walk away. And there are a lot of women that have suffered in silence. A lot of the reason that we had to start other events, though, was to get people to listen to us. So we did start some, we have a lady truck driver cruise, we have a coloring book, some t-shirts and stuff, but that was just really to open up the conversation to get people to listen to this. Over the last 10 years, some other driver groups have started out. One gal who's here, Sheree. Where are you, Sheree? She's in the booth, okay. Tamara's here representing She Trucking. Cheryl from Ladies of Hawaii Trucking. There's a lot of other groups forming of drivers. Some of it inadvertently have become advocates because they weren't being served by the other organization, aren't being served by them. So I wanted Sheree to be here because she started this huge community of women helping women, and all she wanted to do was sell her t-shirt, her She Trucking Apparel t-shirt, and in a short period of time has accumulated almost 2,000 women that are all helping each other finally, which is completely different than when I came in, whereas if you asked a question, you got attacked online, bullied online, chased away into silence. So it's changing right now, but we need the industry to understand how all of these little groups came to be. And that's because they had nowhere else to go. But now we're all connecting and we're forming sort of a coalition of sorts, in some helping each other finally. Next one. So at our particular learning events, we have had sexual harassment, assault, retaliation during truck driver training, lease fraud, student truck driver exploitation, blacklisting. These are the things that we've been trying to educate the drivers about, and the lawyers on the stage are the type of lawyers that represent truck drivers for these types of things. We've had them give us presentations both in person, live, like this, and in video to sponsor our cruise event, where we played the videos during our cruise to educate people that came on the cruise, but also put them on our YouTube later so that all drivers can have access to them anytime on demand. So they're all there on our YouTube channel. We've used social media quite a bit to get our voice out. The picture of this lady right there, this is a senior trial attorney from the EEOC, was one of our first speakers on our first cruise to come and tell us about our rights. And that's something that's really lacking, is that a lot of drivers do not know their rights. They don't know what their rights are with sexual harassment, how to report it the right way, or even find a lawyer. So very quickly, you'll find this on our, this is our annual report. And I wanted to make sure that I drew your attention to this, because we started out with us just throwing in a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Now our annual budget is a little bit over $26,000 a year, which is nothing compared to what we've had a voice around the world. We've been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, Bloomberg, NPR. We are drivers, and we did this while we're driving full time. So I want everybody that says that you don't have a voice to know you have a voice. You do. And don't wait for these big organizations to speak for you. They are not speaking for you. We did get involved in the Truck Parking Coalition. If any of you are familiar with the Truck Parking Coalition, that was started because of Jason Rivenberg's murder. It started Jason's law by his wife, his widow, that gave birth to his twins right after he was murdered. My social media activity and exposure to the public made me be somebody that a lot of people ask questions to, including Alan and Donna. So I've stayed with the Truck Parking Coalition. I continue to go to meetings. There's going to be one here Saturday morning. If you're a driver, get involved in that. I did a webinar for the Women's Bureau in 2014. In 2015 also, I was asked to make a sexual harassment webinar. It had never been asked before. The company that asked me to do it makes safety videos for the big trucking carriers in our industry. They make the CSA videos and the 3 points of contact videos and all these things that all the motor carriers have to train their drivers. They came to me and said, would you make this this webinar for sexual harassment? Nobody's teaching the drivers. We want to have it in our library. I worked really super hard on it, and as soon as they started advertising it, somebody called and canceled it. Somebody in this industry called and canceled it. They don't want us to have this education. You need to have this education to protect yourself from sexual harassment and sex assaults. So the time is over for that. we're not going to accept that anymore, that you're going to cancel a presentation to teach people how to protect themselves. This year, we were represented by Public Justice. And I've been if anybody's followed me on social media, I've talked a lot about the sexual harassment. Public Justice represented us to unseal court documents in the CRST sex harassment case. A lot of the documents have been sealed and nobody's ever read about it, so it's become sort of an urban myth among drivers that it's fake, that it's not really happening. So Public Justice entered a motion for us, Real Women in Trucking, to intervene in the CRST sex harassment case to unseal those documents, and we won. And we just started getting the first documents last week. And some of the stuff that I've read in just the first few pages, not even related to sex harassment, related to the numbers of turnover of people in their training program, should raise alarm bells to everyone in this industry. It is just outrageous. And some of the things that have happened to these women, it is directly related to safety. Nobody should have to go into a training program and be petrified of the person they're in the truck with. In addition to representing us in our motion to intervene, Public Justice is representing Dominic over here. Dominic is the lead in the case that the Supreme Court will hear about arbitration in the new prime thing. And I'm not saying it right. Let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to let one of you guys explain new prime versus Oliveira. Craig actually wrote we contributed to the amicus brief in the Supreme Court case, and Craig wrote part of it, so I'm going to let him summarize what it means.
Thank you so much, Desiree, and also Alan and Donna Smith, and I want to recognize Rosie, the CEO of my firm, and all the other great lawyers, and of course my mom's here in the audience, even though I'm 46, super embarrassing. Great to be here at the Great American Truck Show, especially with Desiree and the Real Women in Trucking. And this is a complicated, kind of boring issue, so I'm going to try to distill it in a nutshell. But a couple of years ago, the United States Supreme Court said companies are allowed to have arbitration agreements where they basically tell you you can't go to court, no jury trial, any dispute has to go to arbitration. That's true for credit card companies. The original case was with AT&T, it was called Concepcion, and they further held that in that same agreement they could say no class actions are allowed, only individual case, so you can't band together. That continued on in another case called Stolt-Nielsen, where they said if the arbitration agreement is silent, that means you can only go to an individual arbitration as well, you can't band together. Now, the Federal Arbitration Act, which is the law that allows arbitration agreements to be enforceable, has an exception for transportation workers. So anybody who's a transportation worker automatically would be excluded from this rule. That means truckers, in theory, should be able to go to court. Okay. Thing is, what happens if you're not a company driver, but you're an owner-operator? Okay. In all these owner-operator and all the lease agreements, they always have the arbitration clauses in there with the class action waivers. So now before the court is the interesting issue, is that considered under the Section 1 exemption, the transportation worker exemption? If independent owner-operators or independent contractors who've signed these lease agreements are exempt, then those arbitration agreements are not enforceable. That issue is a lot of important stuff, particularly on the topic of misclassification, which we're going to address later, because if someone's misclassified, maybe they shouldn't have had to pay for fuel. Maybe they should have gotten paid for a lot of time that they weren't compensated for. So that issue, that's the issue in front of the Supreme Court, and we did file an amicus brief on behalf of the truck drivers in that case.
Thank you.